And so heads up, everyone, it's going to be recorded for posterity.
Yeah, so things that you say, we can go back to it and think of the awesome things that we got on this webinar this morning. So professional development planning, we're getting ready to go this year and our schools have started. So we wanted to take a chance for people to reflect on what their goals are for this year and how they set up for professional development, so that we don't kind of forget it, because sometimes our day-to-day things, the emergencies that we deal with, the little things, staffing can take up most of our time. And so it's good to be mindful about how you're planning around your own development as a professional in the field and kind of what are your future goals. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. And I'm really excited to hear what folks have to say about how they like to structure their time or what questions that they have, as well as please keep in mind of how Northwest Tacujo can help you. And so if you do have any thoughts, we'd be happy to hear those, especially in the chat box, and we can kind of take a log of that. So again, I'm going to talk about our talking stick this morning is the chat box. So in order to kind of control the madness of how many people are on, if you have something to say, excellent, just type into the chat box, and then we'll unmute people as we go along, kind of use it as our speaking cue. And then again, please think about how Northwest Tacujo can help you. I am going to take a moment to plug my own thing. Is a great way to work in some professional development is our First Fridays webinar. And so you'll see at the bottom of your screen that we do have a proposal form now on our website where you can submit to present with First Friday webinars. So as we're thinking of these things, if there's a topic that you're like, I would love to present about this, please reach out to me and fill out that form and we'll work together to make that happen. So that's my plug. We're done. So Michelle from Lee Benton is here with me as well.
Hello.
So we will all kind of cue in about our thoughts as well. So some discussion questions to start off this morning. And we don't have to kind of stay with this, but in order to get the ball rolling, I thought we would start with some things. So Eric is also on the line. So Eric, if you have things to say, you're welcome to jump in. I think we also have Catherine Magura and Brian Stroop on. So those are some of the names that I know, as well as some of my University of Washington folks I've seen as well. So
thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so I guess the first question to queue up is, how do you define professional development? And I think when you're pondering this question, it's important to recognize how you personally define it, but also how does your department and how does your institution define professional development? Because these two things are going to really help shape the types of opportunities that you can pursue and what might be available to you. So for instance, here at UW in our residential life department, we really define professional development first and foremost as excelling in the job that you're currently in. And so we really stress a lot with the resident directors to look at their position description and the areas that they're incumbent within and see where are their growth pieces. And that's what supervisors would spend a great deal of time talking about. At other institutions, there may be specific professional development pathways or tiers that exist where it's a checkbox of skills or a checkbox of workshops for individuals to go through. So very important for you to have a good understanding of how your institution defines it. But that shouldn't be your total limiting factor, because we all know you may end up in a variety of roles within housing or within higher ed in general, and some folks are going to choose to move on from higher education as well. And you need to be developing skills that will assist you in whatever path you're hoping to pursue. So taking a really strong look at both together is important. What your institution defines and what you personally define. So your institution may not place a heavy weight on, for instance, public speaking or on different types of communication, but that may be something that you recognize in yourself would make you a stronger professional. So it's important to look at both of those definitions.
Yeah, I completely agree, Michelle. What I've already done this year is that our evaluations for the past year ask us to list out our professional development goals and kind of what achievements we had the last year, and then what are our goals for this next year. And so already today I've brought those out for myself and going, okay, well, way back in May when I did that, what did I say my priorities were? As well as getting with my supervisor and looking at what those priorities are. And so what skills do I need to have to push through my goals at my job and my priorities from my department? But the second thing that I had supervisors tell me in the past is look at the jobs that you might want to do. What might be your dream jobs? And actually looking at job descriptions and picking out what are the skills that I would like to develop in order to get to those places. For myself, I don't know exactly what direction I'm going. There are a lot of different places I could go, but if you know Josh Ganna, you're going to find this funny. I have said, well, if I was going to be Josh Ganna, who's my assistant director for facilities services and planning, what kind of skills that I would like to have, and kind of see where there are some misses in terms of what I'm doing now and where I'd like to build, and kind of try to figure out, well, how could I bridge the gap in those?
So for other folks out there, how do you define professional development? Are there other areas that Kate and I have not touched on? And you can ping in the discussion box. We have a shy group today. All right, so the next piece, and we'll just take a little poll here. How many folks out here have a professional development plan? And you can ping in the chat box just yes or no. That may be a formal plan where you've written it out, or it may be something a little bit less structured.
So Brian Stroop is saying Oregon State University does have. Richard is saying that we've defined around that. So it's kind of split yeses and nos about professional development plan.
Excellent. So having a professional development plan, it's a really great tool. And this is going to look very different depending on the individual. So you may be the type of person that really wants something very, very structured. You have created a checklist for yourself, or timelines, or perhaps a logic model of here is my end goal. Here are all of the different inputs I'm putting into it. Here's how I'm going to get there. And for other folks, you may just generally have some goals in mind and do some check-ins and conversations with supervisors and with colleagues. Regardless of what your style is, it's a good idea to have a goal in mind and to be starting to think about what are the steps that you want to take. It's very easy in this profession to get sucked into the day-to-day. We know that there are always student crises, that there are always facilities crises, that we are pulled in a lot of different directions in housing. And so if you are jumping from one day to the next, it's really easy to lose track of what skills you are developing, or to just have it be a series of isolated events that don't necessarily add up to where you're trying to go. So taking some time early on to think about, where do I want to get to, and what are some of the ways that that busy day-to-day can play into it?
And just something practical right off the bat. Stephen Covey, who talks about being effective leaders as well as professionals, if any of you all have read his things, he talks about sliding in time at the end of your week to plan for the next week. And that's something that I try to do, actually make a meeting with myself on Fridays. How am I organizing for the next week? But something I've started trying to do, so to be very practical, is actually to slot in some professional development time. Make a meeting with myself on my calendar for 30 minutes, at least to just have that reflection. Sometimes it doesn't happen that week, but at least I have it there and can make the time to put that effort into it. So that's just kind of one thought about making a meeting with yourself.
What do other folks who answered yes to having a professional development plan, is anyone willing to share a little bit about what their plan looks like? And again, volunteering by pinging us in the chat box. Catherine, can we unmute you? So Catherine's saying that her plan contains her leadership within Akuhoai and Northwest Akuho and presenting and writing for publication.
Catherine, have you dialed in to the conference? Because if you let me know your phone number, I can unmute you. Love to hear from you.
And thanks for rolling with the technical pieces. You're unmuted, Catherine. Let's hear you.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. So my professional development plan, I'll just say it, my supervisor, Brian Straup, is on the line, so I'll make him sound good because he is. We do our professional development plans annually, and in fact, we need an updated version in order to be authorized to travel. So it's a great way to make sure that we have up-to-date professional development plans if you actually want to go anywhere and spend any departmental money. And so my plan contains essentially kind of two parts to it. The attending of conferences and leadership opportunities that I've pursued with both Akuhoai and Northwest Akuho, and then writing and presenting at either conferences or writing for publication, like the talking stick.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Brian, you had already also written into the chat box. Was there anything that you wanted to add or talk about or correct Catherine on? I'm kidding.
Okay. We unmuted you, Brian, if you wanted to respond. Brian showed that OSU has individual as well as departmental plans and areas for multiple experiences to develop professionally. So whether those are conferences, readings, institutes, etc. So readings are a really, really great addition, especially for those who may be a little bit more restricted in their travel possibilities, either because of budget or by the nature of their role. It can be a really, really worthwhile endeavor.
Absolutely. I think
everyone. I'm sorry, Eric here. So we are, of course, like has been said, we're working on using this new interface with Fuse. I think I enabled group chat so that everyone, I think, can now type into the group chat and everyone else can see what they're typing. If that might help with our conversation and kind of everyone getting to see what other people are typing. So I think that is now working for everyone. If you want to type into the group chat, I think everyone else can now see what you're typing.
Thank you, Eric.
And again, thank you everyone for rolling with the technical pieces. It's always fun when an interface transitions right before the webinar. So we're all learning together. The icons are beautiful now, if everyone can see them.
Yeah. You can think of this also as your professional development, getting to know technology. So something that when I moved out of residential life into facilities, something that I started to take advantage of more was actually our university's professional organizational development opportunities on campus. So at the University of Washington, there are many classes that are offered that are just here on campus that you can take, you know, a couple of hours, even a full day, but just in terms of kind of some very specific topics or generally managing time, stress, or different kind of leadership principles. So I think that sometimes in housing, we can kind of get in our own little unit and forget about the kind of the other resources. So hopefully other campuses have those. I know we get an email. So that's something also to put on there when you can't always travel, what you have close at home.
Absolutely. So professional development can feel deeply personal because it is your own career path, right? You're sort of forging your story and writing the pages within. But how do you see the role of others in your professional development? What are folks' thoughts there? Is there a role for others? All of your chat should be activated, so if you want to speak up, just let us know. I guess one of the things that I would say in ponder your responses, we would still like to hear from other folks for the roundtable. The role of others in your professional development is really important for a couple of reasons. And one is that old adage, you don't know what you don't know. And so especially if you are moving into a new position, or perhaps a new functional area within an existing department, you come in with a certain set of strengths and skill sets, and you may know some of your areas of weakness, but for all of us, we have those spots that we didn't realize it was an area to grow in, or maybe we thought that we were doing really well there, and actually how others are perceiving us doesn't quite match up to our self-perception. And so it's really important to be checking in with supervisors, with trusted colleagues, and with those that you're serving, especially because all of us serve some sort of customer service role, either internally or outward facing to students, to get a measure of, is there something that I'm not sure about when I click through these lists that other people are noticing? So others play a really crucial role there in helping you to define what skills you might need to work on. But the other piece is that you only have so much access to research or resources and so much time to dig through those. And so if you are involving others in your professional development, you are essentially recruiting a team that can be your coach, or your team of coaches, and they can help keep an eye out for articles that might relate to an area that you're attempting to grow in. They can keep an eye out within their networks for conferences or institutes or workshops that you can work on that might not be within your own small bubble. So the more folks that you are investing with and involving in your professional development, the broader the web is that you're throwing out there, and the more likely you are to get diversity of perspectives on that particular skill set, but also the more support you're getting. We all know that it's really tough sometimes to keep with a goal, especially again with the day-to-day pieces and the demands on your time. So the more people you have in your corner taking on that sort of metaphorical cheerleader role for you, the more likely you are to be successful in completing that professional development plan.
Yeah. And I think that that web is so helpful. And I think it's very hard to be very vulnerable and ask folks for feedback. I mean, we all know that. We want to just know that we're doing a great job. But lately I've seen a lot of my colleagues do great things by just reaching out and just saying, you've worked with me a year now. Do you have any feedback for me? Any things where you think I could develop? And, you know, these are people who I work cross-functionally with, so folks in assignments, folks in residential life. And I think that people can sometimes be taken aback that you're even asking, are happy to give you thoughts on those things. And I also think it does a lot to bridge barriers between those units as well as around campus. That people are excited that you're open to that, and it opens so many opportunities. I'm amazed at how often when I'm vulnerable and open and ask, I get random emails from me of, hey, have you seen this? Hey, have you seen that? Because we just have no idea what others are really truly putting their time towards.
Other thoughts on how you involve others in your own professional development, whether that's formally or informally? Such a quiet crew. All right, this next one, we really do need your participation. So thinking about how you structure your time to encourage professional development. And Kate shared a little bit about how she tries to structure her time to have that weekly, when possible, review of where she's trying to go and what steps she might need to take in the coming week. For me, we do similar to what Catherine and Brian shared. It's an annual process for me to really review what are those big, longer term goals that I want to accomplish with the year. And then I try to do a check-in at minimum monthly, but I try to do weekly of where am I in that process? And am I making the meetings that I need to make? Am I attending conferences that make sense to meet those goals? And am I having the conversations with my supervisor that I need to be having to get to that place, so that I don't get to May or April and I'm scrambling to meet those last couple of pieces before June comes around and we get to reviews? So I do that by intentionally blocking off time in my schedule. So many of us sort of live and die by our Outlook calendars or our Google calendars. And I think that it's a great option to be able to just take that time and block it off, and the same way that you would for any other appointment, and really make that sort of an appointment with yourself.
Yeah. It's very important because I think early on in my professional life, my development revolved just around my conference, my regional conference. And sometimes it still does. Oh, Northwest Akugo, woo, I'm going to do it there. But that's kind of just one piece to the overall the time that one can spend on that.
Excellent. So I see a couple of folks have chimed in on the group chat. Hopefully everyone is able to see that. Thank you, Drew and Richard. Do either of you want to talk a little bit more about your thoughts there? Looking out for each other, blocking off time on your schedules. Okay, so Richard's not dialed in at the moment, but for those, in case you are unable to see it, it kind of varies by institution. And so if you're not feeling an ongoing commitment to professional development, it might be more difficult to feel empowered or entitled to block that time physically off on your calendar. But where you are in a department that does encourage it, that can be a really, really great piece that you can build in. So a question here, if you're not feeling an ongoing commitment to professional development, what can you do to change the culture? And a couple of really great options here. Catherine shared that Twitter is a really great resource in terms of getting connected. That's absolutely true. SA Chats, hashtag SA Chats, is a good way to see what other folks are talking about and to engage in regular conversations. And Drew is absolutely correct. Catherine's a bit of a Twitter celebrity, kind of a big deal. And hashtag Akuboi is another space where a lot of really great conversations are happening. And from those two hashtags, you can find more niche conversations. Northwest Akuho hashtag is also, of course, always a fantastic place to find information that's more region specific. But from any of those kind of umbrellas, you can find some more niche areas to talk about. And so whether your interest is mental health or customer service or supervising student employees, you can find a variety of topics simply by searching those hashtags and going from there. And if you aren't familiar with Twitter, that in and of itself can be a great professional development opportunity for you to partner up with somebody who is up on some of the newer social media pieces and who's using those and leveraging them well. Connect with those folks and get their expertise.
Yeah. Twitter was something that I don't always feel that comfortable with. I'm more of a Facebooker person, but Twitter actually, I got on it only for student affairs connections. And so it's actually really great to just get to know folks in the field. Once you start following folks, Catherine, and getting connected to other people, you can really see and reach out to those folks for questions or kind of understand what's going on. And some really great articles are posted.
Great. And Michael Mann has a great piece here as well. So for those of you who have more of the downtime during the summer, making sure that you are taking advantage of that as an opportunity to build in the time. And he gave the example of going through the RA training process and rotating presentation topics so that nobody is expected to become the resident expert, which can easily happen. Anyone can take on a new subject to further their confidence in that content area. So they're getting to do a little bit of research. They're furthering the departmental goal of providing a really great RA training, mutually beneficial to everyone. For some of you in your departments or in your functional area, summer may not be the downtime. So identifying where those downtimes are for you and how can you make the most of them.
And going back to if professional development really isn't in your organizational culture, I think it's a great time to kind of investigate how could that be threaded through your culture in a way that makes sense. So in terms of kind of looking at the politics and, how might you propose how professional development could be more part of the culture. And I think sometimes we need to present some ideas instead of waiting for our supervisors or directors to kind of think of it first. So kind of thinking about how that could work and making some sort of outreach to your supervisor and others. I know that there's a group at my work in which I sit down to coffee with other folks around a variety of topics and just reach out to them in order to create some more culture that I enjoy. But I think that a lot of the times we just wait for the department to make something for us. And I think that we can really have a huge difference on that by just saying, well, I think this might work within our organizational culture, and I'd like to propose some thoughts and some strategies around that. And, your department might go, awesome, great, run with it. That's quite exciting.
I think another thing to keep in mind is whenever you are trying to create cultural change, make sure that you're having good conversations with those closest to you. And so understanding maybe why professional development hasn't always been valued. It could be that once upon a time there was a higher priority with it, but budget cuts perhaps sent it to the wayside. You may have a different battle to fight in that regard than if it's something that has really never been a value of your institution. You can never go wrong with making something a mutually beneficial win for folks. And so, for instance, Michael's example there with the RA training process and being able to have a win for the department because RA training has to happen and you want it to be a quality experience for those RAs, how can you structure that in such a way that there are professional development opportunities for those who are presenting it as well? So be on the lookout for those areas where you can have a personal win and you can also have a win for your larger unit or department. It's always a better sell if you can show how it's going to benefit the institution.
Absolutely. So it looks like our group chat is working really well. Is there anyone who wants to chime in on the line so we can hear you as well as what we're doing in group chat?
You can just say, ring me in. And it sounds like lots of people will be connecting on Twitter after this, so that is fabulous.
Excellent.
Always love to see that. So the next sort of topic to think about then is what are the resources to use? Oh, here we go. Yes. So what are the resources that we can use for our own professional development? And we'll start with the shameless Northwest Akuho plugs because that's what we're here for. And then we can talk a little bit more about what are some of the other resources that are available. So this is where the we're here to help you comes into play. We exist for you as the membership. And the biggest most high profile piece is obviously the annual conference that happens every year in February. And that's a great opportunity to meet folks in person and be able to go to a variety of presentations across functional areas from people who are at a variety of levels of professional experience. So that's a wonderful opportunity. But we have opportunities throughout the year as well. So Kate plugs the First Friday webinar presentation opportunity, which we have a snazzy new form on the website to be able to plug in if you're interested in developing your public speaking and presentation skills. We also do a number of drive-ins throughout the year, and we have a few that are upcoming. So we have a mental health drive-in coming up, we have a sustainability drive-in coming up, and you can get more information about both of those on the website as well as on any of our social media. You can find information about how to register. And that's a great opportunity if you're not able to travel as far or you want a little bit more intimate group to be able to discuss these topics with. So drive-ins are a wonderful opportunity. We also provide a lot of different topics for conversation on the Facebook page and on the Twitter feed. So that's a great opportunity to interact, to ask questions of your colleagues around the area. And the listserv is also a wonderful opportunity to be able to tap into the expertise of others and get your questions answered. But there are also lots of other resources for your professional development. And Catherine has helpfully plugged that program proposals for Northwest Akuho 2015 are beginning next week. So you know what your weekend is looking like now, folks.
There's also a lot on many different sites and with other resources, with the Kuhoi and others, opportunities to get weekly emails that would have different links with uh, other articles about certain things. I know from years ago, I'm still getting things about international students and student visas and those kind of resources that I just kind of look at. You can get a lot just sent to you so that it's kind of in your face and you can just kind of be perusing it and still continuing to connect on those topics. That can be really helpful.
Great resources exist on all of your campuses. And so that is a really great place to start. Who do you work with on a day-to-day basis? Who are the folks that you're having to pick up the phone and call when you have a question about some special area? And so for my work in Res Life, I work pretty extensively with our disability resources for students and with our international student population. And so professional development can be as easy as setting up a coffee chat with the folks that run those offices at your institutions, getting to know more about what they do, what are the issues that they see students facing, what do those students have to say about their experience in housing, and how then can you use your role to increase their customer service, and what kind of skills might you need to develop to better serve individuals in those areas. So just a simple coffee meeting can be a really great resource for you to professionally develop in your role.
And I get a lot out of just kind of reading and reflecting. That's very much my personality. And so I am always looking for great books. Something that I'll do in folks' offices who I have a good relationship with is ask to peruse their bookshelf and see if they have any great topics. I love looking behind people and seeing what books are there and what their thoughts are on them. As well as I think that we also need to remember to consult resources that are outside of housing and just kind of professional in general. There are so many great things about effectiveness, about process improvement that we can bring into the work that we do. Last year, I was on a cross-functional team in terms of lean and how to help processes become more lean. And so that became an interesting thing that I started to look at and read about in terms of, the car industry, in terms of Boeing, and start to kind of figure out what are some different things that I can bring into the work that I do in housing that don't necessarily originate in student affairs. But I think that there's a lot out there to be very helpful.
Absolutely. And as you've seen in the group chat, hopefully there are some links to our upcoming drive-in conferences at Oregon State and at Eastern Washington. So the next couple months are very busy with those opportunities, as well as links to some of our social media areas. The Akuho'ai online learning area is a great opportunity if you don't have the opportunity to travel, or if you are somebody who prefers a more individual learning approach. Those are some wonderful, wonderful resources. And I would completely echo what Kate said about looking outside of higher ed. Sometimes we can get a little bit insular. And so looking at what are best practices in business, what are K through 12 folks doing with education right now, and how does that impact the work that we're doing? Project management, IT has a lot of really great, very transferable pieces that you can use. And so what are some other areas outside of housing that you can look to for that professional development? And Brian Stroop is a resident expert in the Akuho'ai certificate in occupancy management. So certificate programs are a fantastic opportunity, as well as NAFTA and ACPA. And you may have, your institution may have a particular allegiance with one or the other, or you may be able to sort of hop back and forth between both. And as Drew pointed out, learning about hiring best practices outside of higher education, if you are involved at all in recruitment or retention for any of your roles, that is a really, really great place to look, because people do it differently in a variety of areas, and so you can pick up some really great best practices.
Another great technology piece that I'm starting to jump on, I'm always a little behind the game, is Pinterest, actually. And I've started following and interacting with a lot of folks professionally on Pinterest, and it's great the amount of articles. And I can tell when my Res Life folks are on there, and we see a lot of really interesting things pulled from the internet, from everything from staff management to some folks that I know actually in health, in public health, have a lot of great things about drug and alcohol education. And it's a great way to kind of look at what is kind of out there and get direct links, as well as some kind of visual stimulation, which I really love. And I like Pinterest also because you can really organize those things and come back to it later. But just really searching any sort of thought that you're thinking, from time efficiency to hiring to supervision, you get kind of a lot of resources that come up that you can save.
Absolutely. So I love what's going on in the chat box with folks sharing some of the resources that you're using for professional development. The next piece to kind of touch on is what professional development goals are you currently working on? So this is an area, feel free to share it in the chat box or to say, ring me in if you'd like to be able to be a bit more descriptive about it. But sometimes when we think about professional development, it seems really, really daunting and we're not quite sure where to start. And so it can be very helpful to hear what other people are doing for their professional development goals. And so Catherine has shared that she's working on mentoring new professionals. That's great. And what kind of skills might need to come along with that look different than when you're working with your more seasoned folks?
Oh, Drew is planning on starting his MBA next semester. That's awesome. It's wonderful. Some sort of things that I'm looking at, this is my second year in facilities. And so I'm starting to try to get into a lot more research about the private housing market. And so how are folks maintaining facilities in off campus when they aren't state run? My father's an architect actually, and so I have a great resource for me. So I'm kind of reaching out through that avenue in terms of maintenance, in terms of working with, for me, folks in the shops. So trades folks, what kind of are some best practices? Or honestly, something that I'm always working on is communication, is really understanding how am I communicating effectively? And what things should I try? And so I'm starting to try to ask for feedback. I tend to be very wordy, if you don't know. And so sometimes that's taken well and sometimes not. And so trying to get that feedback and also trying to figure out how people in each unit, since I serve residential life, I serve facilities on campus, I serve student services, how do people look at their job and how we communicate and how can I liaison better with those folks?
Wonderful. And a few other great professional development goals. Eric, I think you'll be just fine at surviving these last few months as the Northwest Tacujo president. I think you're all right there. Let's see. Richard is working on intercultural competence, which is always a really critical thing in any area of work, but especially in student affairs. And congrats on being accepted to SJTI. Heard wonderful, wonderful things about that experience. And tapping into Wakuho professional development opportunities. Ian, as a supervisor, is working on encouraging coordinators to take advantage of their professional development opportunities like Northwest Tacujo. I think as supervisors, that's always a challenge, right? You want to be growing yourself professionally, but you also want to be helping your folks to grow professionally. And a lot of times those one-on-ones can get really focused on the most recent student situation or this ongoing facilities issues. So that's a great area to focus on and to address the fact that, yeah, they can definitely be reluctant or scared to dive in. And Michael committing to attending at least one professional conference this year. That's fantastic. And we do hope to see you at Northwest Tacujo. That would be wonderful. And again, Catherine very helpfully chiming in with those dates, February 8th to 10th in Salem, Oregon. Should be beautiful, great location, lots of things to do, and lots of fantastic people to network with. So we're very excited about the conference this year. For me, one of my professional development goals this year is, in the past, I have had a newer crop of resident directors to work with supervising. And so I've gotten some good experience with supervising new professionals and what that means. But this year I have a group that has a number of returners in it. And so really trying to work on how can I make sure that I am challenging them in good ways while not forgetting about my new folks and continuing to give them the kind of care that they need as brand new professionals. So really figuring out how to balance a mixed team in that regard. And then trying to figure out exactly how to really build partnerships with folks around campus where we may have traditionally had some silos. And so how is that communication looking? What can I do differently than I've done in the past where we haven't been as successful? So looking at some of those building blocks there.
Absolutely. This group chat is just great.
I know, you all are doing great there. I'm sorry that you're just hearing our voices, but you all are very speedy typers, so I appreciate that. Yeah, so having the opportunity to present at the Akuhoi LLP conference in October for sustaining living learning communities, that is a fantastic opportunity, Ian, so that's wonderful. I think even for those of us who have done presentations a number of times in different settings, it can be great to challenge yourself in a new environment. Business operations is also next week. October is just such a busy month with these opportunities. But so even if you're somebody who has presented a number of times, if that's an area that you want to grow in, thinking about challenging yourself to present in a new area. Maybe you've always stuck to the regional and you want to challenge yourself at a national conference, or you want to challenge yourself by doing something like a webinar because it's different than your in-person presentation. Or vice versa. Maybe you've done some webinars or things like that in the past and you've never really gotten up in front of everybody before. There are a lot of really great presentation opportunities out there for folks.
As well as, I know this was mentioned at our last webinar in preparing for Northwest Akuho and thoughts about programs, but collaborating with someone to do a program is just, I have to mention that again because it's just such a great opportunity to build a relationship. So build another mentor, another person in that web of folks who can help you in your professional development, but another person to challenge you in order to increase those skills that you have or point out different things or just kind of build and figure something out with you. Can be really helpful. I know that I first started out in the Aimho region and then came to Northwest Akuho, and those relationships have really made my professional development just key, have just been so great in getting outside of my department and my university.
So with that in mind, how can Northwest Akuho continue to support your professional development goals? Are there things that you all would like to see from the organization or things that you've heard today that you are planning to take advantage of? Feel free to either ask to be chimed in or continue to do an excellent job of using the group chat as you have been so far.
And we'll continue to read out kind of what's being talked about in the group chat as well.
I think one of the pieces, you all are here at this webinar, and so you're clearly connected in to some level with Northwest Akuho, but one of the things that can happen is that, especially folks when they're new to the region, they may just not know about the opportunities that exist. So I would encourage you to share things like the webinars, things like the Facebook page, things like the new professional task force, and being able to make sure that everyone knows that those resources exist and how they can take advantage of them. So Drew shared that the new professional task force is working on state, province, and region-wide professional development options, which is great. As Ian pointed out, drive-in conferences are a really economical way to have professional development opportunities. And so that is a really wonderful time to still have that face time while not necessarily having to travel as far as you sometimes may need to for the annual conference. The Northwest Akuho listserv, thank you, Rachel. It's an opt-in, and that's a great place to have discussions with colleagues from all over the area and to very quickly get your questions answered or hear about best practices that other folks are implementing, as well as to get resources. So we know everybody's got a different library in their office. You can chat with a number of folks in that regard. And a great question about how do you become part of the new professional task force. To become a part of any of our task forces, the easiest way is to go to the website, and there is a section under task forces that lists each of our available ones, and it lists the chairs, co-chairs, as well as the board liaisons for each of those task forces. And so you can reach right out to the folks whose contact information is on that page, and they will happily add you and get you connected with the meeting schedule. So Drew has helpfully reached out to Richard. Thank you. And thank you, Rachel, for getting that link up there. It's nice and easy, northwestakuho.org/task forces. So a number of really great opportunities there to be involved at a higher level with Northwest Akuho.
Yeah. The Professional Development Task Force is looking for folks as well. So like all of them, so please reach out. We're happy to have a conversation, and it might seem daunting to reach out to someone that you haven't met, but we are just happy to network and get you involved as much as works for you. So it's a great opportunity to ask questions.
Did folks have other burning questions that they were hoping to have answered today, or that you want to pick the collective brain of the hive mind here while we have everybody on? And I echo Catherine's sentiment. Welcome to the region, Richard, and back to housing. All right, well, feel free to keep typing in there as you have kind of closing thoughts or closing questions, but really want to thank everybody for being here today and for your great participation. I think roundtables are a new and interesting endeavor for us, and as we continue to put these on throughout the year around a variety of subjects, we welcome your input about what you might like to have roundtables cover in the future, but also your feedback about format. So today's group, the group chat was fantastic. That seemed to work really well. In some past sessions, folks have preferred to be able to talk. And so we really want to make these sessions work the best for all of you. So we welcome your feedback and thoughts on future topics. Please reach out to Kate or to me. And again, we are definitely looking for presenters for Northwest Akuho First Friday webinars. So if you're interested in challenging yourself in that way, or if you know somebody who would make an excellent presenter for First Friday webinars, then please check out the webinar proposal form. Kate worked really hard on it, and it's fabulous. So fill it out, give it a chance to be tested, and we look forward to hearing about the great things that are going on in the region.
And I will send out an email later today thanking you all for being a part of this. And so you'll have my email right there in your inbox. So if you'd like to reach back about any of this, happy to, as well as if you're wanting to connect with anybody who's on, I can help kind of bridge those things. So just please, we are here to help you in your professional development in any way that we can. And as well as with the webinars, I am happy to kind of help folks become comfortable with the medium. So don't feel like you have to know exactly what you're doing. I took on this as my professional development because I didn't know how to do it. Michelle has been so helpful in helping me conquer this type of technology. So thank you so much for being on with us this morning. This has been such a great discussion. So many people. I hope you got a lot from it and can take away, and I'm excited to hear about folks' plans coming forward in terms of professional development.
Save the date for those drive-ins and look for an email with program proposals for the 2015 conference next week. Thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful weekend.